be here this evening and welcome everybody to this talk. Now, the topic of the talk, uncovering the learner's inner passions. It's really at the very heart of education. And within education, when I was in the School of Education, I came across this very well-known and well-accepted saying from someone by the name of William Arthur Ward. What he said, and I've translated this into Chinese underneath. He said, the mediocre teacher tells, the good teacher explains, the superior teacher demonstrates, and the great teacher inspires. 最平庸的老师就只能告诉学生啊。如果一个老师整天都是站在哪里告诉学生，他只不过是一个很平庸的一个的老师啊。合格的老师解析，优秀的老师示范，伟大的老师点燃。So this quote is so well accepted amongst educators that it has become a criterion for good teachers. How can you tell if a teacher is good or not? Well, you see if the teacher is able to inspire his or her students, to see if the teacher is able to stir within the student a passion to learn, a passion to want to find out more about the subject matter that he and she teaches. Well, although this quote is for teachers, I think this quote is also appropriate for parents. 这句话呢，对我们做父母的也一样的是可以应用的啊。And our children, when they're young, when they look at us, when they see what we do, they try to imitate. And we know that parents indeed are the children's first set of teachers. 那个家长呢，就是孩子的第一老师，对吧？ And then when we see the child see us driving along, then he wants to get behind the wheel and he wants to drive. There's no way we let a child that is only 2 or 3 or 4 or even 12 handle the family vehicle. So the best we can do is perhaps go to Walmart and get him a plastic buggy like this. And the kid sits on it and he pretends that he is really driving. He's like a Formula 500 driver and he's really excited. And of course he wants some movement. So he wants to go forward. But the only way that he can go forward is because his mom behind him pushes him. So he would turn back and say, Mom, push me faster, faster, faster. Well, but if we see someone on the street, if we see a scene like this, we see someone pushing a car, what do we think? Well, is he trying to get this car somewhere? What is he trying to do with it? That's not the way you use this piece of machinery. There must be something wrong with the engine of a car. Otherwise, he wouldn't be pushing it. Because the way to get this car running is what? Is to put the keys in the ignition. And then when you do that, you go vroom, and then the engine gets started, and then the car moves. And that's the way that a vehicle is supposed to operate. In education, this is the central issue of combating inertia. That is, getting the learner, getting the students to really move on their own. Not because the teacher is pushing them, but because they really want to learn. So therefore, we'll say that the essence of education, at the very heart of education, is more than just the transmission of knowledge. It's more than just passing down knowledge. It is to help the learner discover areas of giftedness and life purpose. It is to help the learner find in him an inner passion, is to ignite that inner passion so that the desire to learn comes not from the outside, but from the inside. So in Chinese, we say that 教育的精髓不是在灌输，不是单单传递一些的知识，乃是在启发，点燃孩子、点燃学生心中的那个的理想跟集成，引导孩子找出他自己里头有一个的摩托，有一个的机器，有一个的内驱力，从要他学变成我要学。And I think parents, those who've been parents for a while, like me, would come to this kind of conclusion. It's a realization that having been a parent to two boys who are now grown-up men, I realize that there are certain things that I can do and certain things I simply cannot do. Things I can do is I can bring the child into the world. But I can't really live the life for you. I can teach you things, but you got to do the learning. I can't do the learning for you. You have to learn it yourself. I can tell you what's right from wrong, but I can't really prevent you from messing up. I can teach you to love and be kind, but I can't ensure that you have good character. I can make life easier for you, but I can't really give you grit and resilience. Tonight, I want to share with parents and young people alike. And I think both parents and also the young people need to be on the same page so that at the very heart of education, parents as teachers to the children, that we all are thinking alike, that we are all seeing the matter as we should see it. Tonight, I'm going to share four basic principles, four principles of uncovering the learner's inner patterns. There are four things that we need to bear in mind. Principle number one is that the reason to work hard, I mean, parents are always telling you, young people, right, that you should work hard. You should really work hard. You should study hard. You can, but this reason to work hard must come from within, must come from inside of you. 孩子那个奋斗的那个的目标，需要他自己来设定的。父母如果为孩子设定那个奋斗的那个的目标，如果孩子不认同的话呢，要就是他做的不成不样，没有日程，没有集成，要就是他背道而驰。So it has to come that the reason to work hard, this motivation must come from within the child. Now, I don't know what parents say to the children to motivate them. Is it because, well, the exam is around the corner. Soon it'll be exam time. You need to study hard. You need, that may be one way of motivating. But I wonder if young people, what you hear from your parents when they tell you to work hard, to study hard, what reason do they give you? Well, I noticed that a lot of parents say the following. They'll tell their kids, you study hard. Then you say, why, mommy? Why should I study hard? Then mommy says, well, that's because unless you study hard, you can't really get into a good university and maybe, study a challenging program, a good program. Well, then what, Mom? What if I, can go to the university of my choice and I can pick, I can study the program that I want to, then what? Well, then you'll make a good living, son. Then you'll make a good living, daughter, right? I mean, that's typically what our parents say to the children. But in this process so far, we're still talking about pushing this buggy along, right? Because it's not coming from inside of you. It's not coming from inside the child. It's still from the outside. It's still like we're pushing that car. The engine hasn't been ignited. The second principle is this. The fruits of one's labor should not benefit oneself only, but others also. 孩子奋斗的那个的动力啊，就是他的那个内驱力啊，不能局限于成就个人的利益，不是单单为了他能享受人生，让他呢可以赚很多的钱，也必须包括成就别人的利益。 这里我讲到的就是一种的智力跟一种的他力。智力就是对自己好的。Here I talk about when one works very hard, and of course there would be rewards for his labor, right? The rewards of the labor should not just benefit the person who labors, but should also benefit others as well. John Maxwell, someone that I look up to, and I learn from him online and whichever opportunity I get. He has this to say about immaturity. He says immaturity is nothing more than putting yourself first in every area of your life. Significance comes not by what we do for ourselves, but by what we do for others. If we're constantly thinking about, well, doing well myself, getting ahead myself, gaining a lot of material things for me, everything is just me, then in a way it is a sign of immaturity, because you're only really thinking about yourself. You should, what I'm saying is, if you really want to be passionate about something, if you want that passion to last long, your passion should include others. There should be others included in your plan to benefit, not just yourself. In the 60s, when I first came to North America as a university student in the United States, it wasn't long ago that John F. Kennedy, one of the most beloved presidents, was assassinated. And he left behind many, many sayings that Americans are very fond of. And here's one. In fact, President Kennedy challenged young people of his day. And he said, and so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. It was in the 60s. America has just come out of the Second World War as a country that had not encountered any battles and so on its own soil. Therefore, the country, United States, was able to rise up, and it was also a time there was great prosperity. But the president of the United States at the time challenged the young people, just because you see a lot of prosperity and you see a lot of affluence around you, don't just stop there. Don't just think how you can get a piece of the action. What you should be asking yourself is what you can do for your country. And he instituted the Peace Corps, a plan that would send young people all over the world to do community services, to help poor people all around the world. Many programs were set up for young people to challenge them to do something worthwhile with their life. It is important for us to realize that as Christians, we also have a charge given in the Bible. 1 Peter 3 has this to say about how we were called into the world. What was the purpose for being called into the world? God called Christians out of the masses in the world to do what? To be a blessing to others. And that is the reason why Christians too need to be mindful of needs of others, not just of themselves. So principle number 3 is only inner drives that aim high can be sustained over time. Only a passion that would include the welfare of others, not just yourself, can be sustained over time. And the reason why I say that is because if you should tell people what your career plan is going to be, like over the years as an educator, I've had lots of young people who come to me and ask me if I would be willing to write a letter of recommendation for them. Of course, I always ask the question, what do you want to do? What do you want me to write this recommendation for? What is the purpose for it? Maybe the answer from the other side is, Dr. Cheng, I really want to get into a top university. maybe one in the United States, a top one like Harvard or Yale, then or someone would say, oh, I really want to get into an oversubscribed program, a program that is very difficult to get into in university, and I need a strong letter of recommendation. Can you provide one for me? Of course, I asked. I would not be happy with just the answer of whether he wants to go into what kind of program or to study in which university. I always follow up by asking, then why do you want to get into this university? Why do you want to become a medical doctor? Why do you want to get into this tough program that you want to get into? What is the reason? Well, the answer often would give me the clue whether the person that is asking me for the letter of recommendation actually has a high ambition or has a very mediocre ambition. Well, you say, how can that be? I'm already trying to get into the toughest university there is. Of course I have ambition. But if the ambition of your getting into the Harvard and the Yales of the world is because you can, at age 30, no longer have to work, then you have made so much money, you will have made it. Or maybe the same reason why you want to be a medical doctor is because you want to have made it by age 40. You have made enough money so you can play golf the rest of your life. Then I think my motivation in wanting to write a letter of recommendation for you is not going to be as eager as if your answer had been that you really want to be a medical doctor because you want to serve the community, because you want to help people. Why should you work hard? Parents often say, you work hard, you go to university, and you make a good living. Well, I suggest that parents tell their children to listen to the world, to listen to a world that is crying out to us and say, the world that says, I'm a broken world and I need fixing. Won't you help me? Parents can also tell the kids, you work hard and have a better life, have a better future. And I think parents should also add, you should work hard and make this a better world. Principle number 4 is now that we have, we understand that the passion has to come from within. We know the passion needs to include others in our plan, and we also need to aim high. Then high aims also need to be life relevant to the child. That is, the young people will need to see how this high plan, this ideal plan can be accomplished, can be achieved. How is this road going to look like? What is it like traveling on this road? Or like this ladder? How can I climb up this ladder and achieve the goal? How can we make this seemingly impossible goal possible? Tonight, I want to tell you a little bit about one of my 2 sons, my youngest son, Mark. This is Mark, not a very recent picture, but perhaps going back a few years. Well, Mark was a good student. After he finished university, he worked 3 years in Toronto, and he really hadn't really found out a direction that he really wanted to get into, even after 3 years after university. But in the 3 years working in Toronto, he began to have clearer vision of what he really wanted to do. First, he wanted to go back to graduate school. So he went to New York City, he went to Columbia Graduate School, and to Teachers College, and got his master's in education. And while he was there, he found his passion in education, like his dad, like his mom. And that was a decision that he made, that's the field that he wanted to go into. After finishing his studies at Columbia, he got a job with the New York City Department of Education as a researcher. And of course, as parents, we were very proud and happy that he had done that. And when he started work, we kept in touch with him. He was staying in New York and seemingly very happy, and we were very happy for him. But after about 2.5, 3 years, he came home one Christmas, and he broke the news to us that he has resigned from the New York Department of Education. And we said, "Why, son? Why? I thought you were so happy there. Why would you be changing jobs? But where are you going? Have you found another job?" And he said, "Yes, Daddy, I found another job." And of course, we were eager to find out what was his next destination, what school he was going to go to. And we found out that this school in New York City that he was going to join was called Democracy Prep, which was a charter school. It's a public school, but with a special charter, with a special purpose for schooling. That's fine, except we found out then where the school was going to be. And he told us that this is a school that is located in Harlem, New York. And when we heard the word, the community Harlem, our hearts dropped. Why? Because Harlem is a place with a notorious reputation, with a very bad, image of a place, because it is a very poor borough or a region within New York City. New York City, of course, is a huge place. There's a lot of affluence, a lot of money, a lot of wealth in New York City, but seemingly the place with the least of it is right in Harlem. Many years ago, when I traveled to New York City, my friends would tell me, if there is one place you don't want to go to, it's Harlem, New York. Not only don't you want to go into the city during the night, you don't even want to go into the city during the day. It's so dangerous. Because when you go in, people know that you're not from that community, and you do not have the appearance of someone who lives in the community, because people who live there typically have very dark skin, and they don't like any other skin color people going into their community. And now our son, our beloved son, is going to work there, and this is going to be his place, not only to work there, but he's actually finding an apartment and moving right into the heart of Harlem. So we had to find out a little bit about this place. And when we found out about this place, we were astonished to hear that this was indeed a very wonderful place, and Mark has found a very good destination. This school, Democracy Prep, was founded by a gentleman by the name of Seth Andrew. He was a teacher, and upon finishing university, he went to teach English in Seoul, Korea. When he was in Seoul, Korea, he was so touched he found some of the values that the Korean society embraced, and some of those values he really appreciated, and found that exactly those were the values would be missing in inner city America. What values was he talking about? He found Koreans to be very hardworking, very dedicated. They're very patriotic to their country. Koreans also are very proud of their heritage, but they didn't just cling to the past, but they also are very innovative. They also embrace technology. Of course, we know that companies like Samsung and Hyundai and Lotto and so on, right? Are just fantastic tech giants. But he also found that Korean society, a lot of Koreans, they have faith, they're Christians. And they're also they have family values. They're very connected to the family, to their parents and their children, and so on. He said those are exactly the values that need to be brought over to America. So upon return to New York City, he wanted to start his own school, but then he's from New York, and then he looked at Harlem. He looked at this particular community and say, wow, our schools here are so broken. He found, for example, the Harlem Middle School, a school that when 100 students come into the school and enroll in the school, less than 20% of students who enroll in Harlem Middle School would ever graduate. They would drop out, they somehow drift away, they get in trouble with the law, they get incarcerated, they're found in jail, they get addicted to various kinds of drugs, and so on and so forth. Through his family's influence, he was able to take over the school. He was able to take over Harlem Middle School and make it into a charter school that he was able to sort of reform and change the school into a school that would make a difference to all the students who would be coming to this new school. The name of the school is even changed to Democracy Prep. He has his plan of changing the school or reforming the school. There are two ways. One is to provide the children, to provide the students with an excellent education, with more education, not less, to provide them with more education. And one of the things that he has noticed is that as we speak about equal opportunity in education, that is providing every student the same kind of education. It may be fine for some of the students, but for students who come from underprivileged families, that education may not be enough, may not be sufficient. Take a look at this picture. There are 3 kids trying to watch a baseball game. Well, the kid on the left, he has ability, and yet he's provided with an education. Great. Even without this education, he was probably able to see this game very well. But with the education, he sees it really well now. You see the middle child? Well, without that education, he probably won't be able to see to watch the game. But with the education, he can. But look at the one on the right. The one on the right, well, he doesn't have a lot of ability. And even if you provide him with one, it's still not sufficient. And so Seth Andrews said, for kids who come from these disadvantaged homes, we need to offer a little bit more. We need to make sure that those who come from disadvantaged homes would get a little bit more so that he too can see the game. Typically, a school day starts at 9 and ends at 3. But he said, to help these kids who come from these families, we need to start the school day earlier, and we have to end it later. So the school day, instead of 9 to 3, is now 7:30 to about 5:30. Each day, there's 2 hours devoted to language instruction, 2 hours devoted to mathematics, 2 hours devoted to science, and 1 hour to social studies. And there are a lot of co-curricular and extracurricular activities that are also blended in the school curriculum so that the children could benefit from these extra programs, much like kids who come from well-off homes, or at least from families who are able to afford them with a better home education, to provide them with extra resources, extra skills like music lessons, or be able to join a soccer team, and so on and so forth. But you can imagine when a school wants to do that, the first group of people that are really unhappy about the change of the school day would be the teachers who are already teaching in that school. There's no way. I don't want to. I've been teaching from 9 to 3. Now you want me to come in at 7:30? You want me to leave at 5:30? Well, even if you were to pay me extra, to pay me overtime, it's not worth my while. I have a family. I have other things, etc., etc. This gave Seth Andrew an opportunity to recruit teachers from right across America. You know, the motto of the school for Democracy Prep, very simple. 3 phrases. You work hard, you go to college, you change the world. You work hard, you go to college, and you change the world. So Seth Andrew was able to reach out to teachers across the land and say, won't you want to come and work in this very special place? Because you are able to help in the school, you're able to help these young people who are already willing, who are ready. They tell us they're ready to work hard. They're ready to work hard so that they can go to college, go to university, and one day change the world. Would you like to come and help them? Maybe to his surprise, maybe to other people's surprises, maybe to other people is a surprise, but there was a tremendous response. There were a lot of people, there were a lot of teachers who wanted to come and teach in this special place. Teachers who want to come and make a difference. Teachers who want to come to a school not just to earn a paycheck, but to do something that is really spectacular and wonderful. My wife and I had the opportunity to visit the school. And when we were at the school, we found out the background of many of the teachers who are now teaching in the school. Mark introduced us to many of his colleagues. And we were really impressed to see the staff of the school, how hard they work, and with what great passion that they work. Now I understand why Mark wants to be a part of the action, why he wants to work in this special place. Because he's not content to just work maybe at a desk. Yes, it may be challenging work, but here in this place, he's able to see how his work translates into making a big difference in the lives of many, many young people and their families. He was trusted with the task of being the data manager, who is able to track the progress of every student in the school from the day they come into the school, track the academic progress to make sure that they are mission appropriate, to make sure that during this, as they progress from one year to the next, that they are on target to graduate on time and get into a good university, to be in a position to eventually change the world. People added the extra time in the school day and found that if someone was to start the school day not from 9 to 3, but not have a school day from 9 to 3, but from 7:30 to 5:30, it translates into almost 6 more years of schooling. No wonder Democracy Prep turns out scholars, turn out strong students. One of the things that makes this school very unique too is that because remember, Seth wants to bring back these values and introduce them to inner city America. Well, Democracy Prep would be the school that insists that every one of their graduates will study 4 years of Korean language. You need to have 4 years. Become fluent in Korean language. When you step into the school, you find work hard, go to college, change the world. You find the school motto everywhere. Indeed, that is the admission criteria. The school, in admitting the students, will not admit students who are smart, intelligent, or come from a good home. None of that. The school admits students only on one ground. That is, the child and also the family agree with the school motto. That is, they come into the school, that they promise to work hard. They promise to want to have the desire to want to go to college after high school, and also be committed to changing the world, making the world a better place. This is a picture of a Korean language class. Everyone learns Korean. And then in the school, it's really funny to see a lot of students of the school dressed in Korean traditional costumes. And the band uses plays Korean music and with Korean instruments. And of course, Korean schools, upon knowing that there is a school in New York City that teaches Korean, they become sister schools, and many of the students would travel to come over and visit Democracy Prep. And so Harlem meets Korea meets Harlem. In 2013, Prime Minister Kim came to visit the school. In 2017, the Secretary of the United Nations, Ban Ki-moon, became the 2017 commencement speaker. Actually, before my son ever joined the school had actually become one of the most desired destinations in New York City. In 2011, the school became the top public school in New York City. It has become a school of choice. Many parents want to enroll the kids in the school. So lining up for admission is something to behold. But you have to come from the community, number one. Secondly, you have to also buy into the school motto of what? You remember? Work hard, then what? Go to college, then what? Change the world. I ask myself, if kids from inner city America, from disadvantaged backgrounds, could have such high aspirations, could have such dreams about what they can be, can have visions of how they can help and impact the world, how much more should kids from the Chinese community, when we bestow so much of the resources into education, when Chinese parents are never frugal about spending on education, when parents are never short of a want or desire to bless the children with the very, very best. How much more should our children, our young people, want to also work hard for what? Not just for their own private gains, but to be a difference maker. When we found out that this was going to be Mark's place of work, we were very, very proud. And we were very, very happy to see a young man who had passion, who would move, who would walk briskly, walk quickly, do things with passion, and do things with a purpose. Actually, when he joined Democracy Prep, that was over 7 years ago. He stayed in the school for close to 6 years. In fact, recently, just before the pandemic, Mark told us that he's leading Democracy Prep. He's no longer going to be a part of the Harlem miracle. Why? Because he now has another calling. That's because the Detroit public schools now have reached out to him and said, Mark, won't you join us? Won't you bring the experience and come and join us in Detroit? Because Detroit is a very needy city. Young people, do you know where Detroit is? Have you heard of Windsor? Yes, it's just across the river from Windsor. Why don't you cross over to the United States from Windsor? There's Detroit. You might have passed through it. What's your impression of Detroit? Well, it's a very broken city, isn't it? You find a lot of broken homes. You find a lot of streets that are empty. You know, the school district used to serve 280,000 students. But now Detroit Public Schools only had about 75,000 students. Why? Because a lot of the families moved out of Detroit. They moved to the suburbs. The nice families all ran away. And now in Detroit Public Schools, what we know is that here is a school district that is 83% Black, 13% Hispanic. And that leaves only what, 4% for Caucasians, for Asians, and so on. Well, Mark joined the school. We miss him very much because now the border is closed and we've not been able to see him. He was able to come back for Christmas briefly, and he had to social distance himself. But we're so proud that he has taken on another challenge. I just hope that the story that I'm sharing with you touch your heart. I hope that you know, some of our young people in our midst today, maybe all our young people today, also have dreams to want their lives to be really, really worthy. Just to do wonderful things. Life is short and it passes very quickly. Leave your mark. Do something wonderful. Next, I'm going to share with you a story that you all know very well. I want to tell you a little bit about David and about Goliath. There's a story that you know very well since your Sunday school days, right? You know about David, how he came to the battlefield. Why did he come to the battlefield? Well, he was a little boy, you know, a young person, probably a teenager. He was bringing his father had asked him to be a courier, to bring some things to the front lines, because his 3 older brothers were in the army fighting the Philistines. The Israelites were facing an invading army, a very strong army, particularly this one Goliath, a strong man. When the whole army refused to come out to fight Goliath, and they were scared when they saw someone that was so big and strong and so scary, these soldiers just stayed in their tents, didn't want to come out. But Goliath came out and he was shouting obscenities. He was cursing the God that the Israelites worship. But yet the Israelites stayed back and they didn't want to stand up because they see such a big challenge. They didn't want to face this challenge by themselves. But David stood up. David requested to go into the front line. He wanted to fight Goliath. A little boy wanting to do that. Wasn't he afraid? Was he insane? Was he crazy? Why would he want to do something like this? I think one of the reasons why David wanted to do that, we had to go back a little bit and connect the story that was described a chapter earlier in 1 Samuel 16. Because the confrontation between David and Goliath was in 1 Samuel chapter 17 and on. But in 1 Samuel 16, it talked about Samuel. Samuel went to the house of Jesse because he was told by God that he was to select a leader to lead Israel from the household of Jesse. So when the household heard that Samuel, the most respected religious leader of the day, would come to the home, of course, you can imagine everybody, there was a lot of commotion, a lot of excitement in the home. Perhaps they cooked a wonderful meal. Perhaps everyone dressed in their Sunday best or their best clothing to welcome the leader. And when Samuel came, he looked over the sons of Jesse, one after another. But the Spirit of the Lord he was not moved. And he didn't feel that any of those would be the one that God had chosen to lead Israel. So he asked Jesse, are all your sons here? Is everybody assembled? And when Jesse said, no, we still have the youngest one. He's out in the field. Someone has to do the work. So he's still tending the flock of sheep out there. So Samuel said, well, ask him to come home. And when David came home, what happened? The Spirit of the Lord then indicated to Samuel that this was the one. This is the one that I've chosen. So in front of his brothers, his 7 older brothers, in front of his parents, in front of his whole household. So Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed David in the presence of his brothers. And from that day on, the Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon David. That's what the Bible says. David became a changed man. I so very much wish that Christian parents can also see, if only our children could be wonderfully blessed and could be encouraged to see the role that they can one day play in the world, how much more motivated they can be. I think from this moment on, David immediately connected his life with the future of Israel. That the destiny of Israel and his very own life are now intertwined. They're part of the same. So when he was in the battlefront, when Goliath was shouting obscenities and all the rest. Now when the Philistines gathered the forces for war and assembled in this place, then Saul and the Israelites also assembled and camped in the valley of Elah and drew up their battle line to meet the Philistines, right? And then the Philistines occupied one hill and the Israelites another, with the valley between them. A champion named Goliath, who was from Gath, came out of the Goliath from the Philistine camp. Note his height, 2.97 meters. Actually, the Bible said the exact measurement was six cubits and a span. Well, I worked out all the measurements and it translated into 2.97 meters. Young people, do you know how tall is 2.97 meters? Do you know someone who is that tall, 2.97? I bet you haven't. I don't know if there is someone in the world today that is that tall. Well, what are some well-known tall people that we know? Well, I found out that, if Goliath was 2.97, then you all watch NBA, right? You all watch LeBron James. Do you know how tall LeBron James is? LeBron James is a big man, a huge man. He's only 2.06. He's just a tad over 2 meters tall. No, I found a picture. It's not the uniform he's wearing now. He's a Laker, right? Yeah. But if he was to stand right next to Goliath, he just barely touched, the tip of his shoulder. I mean, he's almost a full meter shorter. When you come up to Goliath, he's going to have to say, hey, what's the weather up there? Right? And the Bible also says that he had a bronze helmet on his head and wore a coat of scale armor of bronze weighing 57 kilograms. Wow, just the bronze armor weighed 57 kilograms. Well, I bet many of your moms don't weigh 750, your mom doesn't weigh 57 kilograms. Asian women, mature Asian women, perhaps some of them would reach 57 kilo, right? On his legs, he wore bronze greaves and a bronze javelin was slung on his back. Wow. Well, too bad at the time, we had no camera, we had no iPhone, we had nothing to capture that battle scene. But in the internet, I was able to find a picture of, I guess, an artist who imagined what the scene must be like at the time. I suppose the person that was in the foreground must be Goliath. Look at his fingers. What was he trying to say? I ask you to send your best fighter, your best warrior to come out to fight with me, man on man, And you sent out this little guy. I also found in the internet another artist who would contrast the height and the body mass of Goliath with this little David. What a contrast. And there's another artists that would portray the picture a little bit differently. He sees Goliath very, very fierce looking, fearsome looking, but not wearing his armor. And then there's another artist. I think this one is very action-packed. You see Goliath charging over to David. He was about to take out his sword, and he was going to whip him in half. And you see David with a slingshot. All he had was just 5 pieces of stones that had pebbles that he had picked out. And here he was sending one of his stones out to greet Goliath. The next one. You see Goliath now struck down. Well, I don't need to tell you the details of the story. I think you know the story very, very well. But this artist must think that because David did win the battle, he couldn't be that small. And so in his depiction of David, you see David now all of a sudden became a body, someone who's very masculine, who had worked on his muscles and so on, showing his six-pack. Here's the next one. It's a picture by Andrea Beccaro. How do we know that's David? Well, because it's dragging a head, and his head is huge. How do you know that's the head of Goliath? How do you know? Well, you see the bump in his forehead, can't you? Yeah, that's right. That's Goliath. David had to chop off his head and drag him back to his side. The next picture is my very favorite, and it's by Caravaggio. Caravaggio drew this picture, over 400 years ago. And this is lying in a museum, I think, in Venice. This is a picture that if you watch it very, very closely, you see, first of all, you notice that this Goliath had his head, but no body. You actually can see the blood still dripping heavily from the head. Lots of blood still draining out. You see the Caravaggio tried to depict the Goliath that died almost instantaneously. When the slingshot hit him, he just dropped that. He didn't even have time to close his eyes. He didn't have time to close his mouth. He was shouting something to David, and just like that, his life ended. And you see David with his pensive look on his face. But one of the things we're not able to see from this, this internet picture is we don't see the actual inscription on the sword. Actually, on the sword were 3 words: Humilitas occidit superbium. That's Latin for what? It says that humility always wins over pride. But one of the wonderful things that people observed from this picture was that they found that the face of David and the face of Goliath, there's a resemblance of the look. They look like somebody. They look like somebody in real life. Who could that be? Could it be? Yes, Caravaggio himself. It's the picture, it's the very picture of Caravaggio, the artist, the painter who drew this. For some reason, Caravaggio wanted to draw what he looked like as a young person on David's face. And he drew himself on Goliath's face. What could be the reason for that? Some suspected that perhaps Caravaggio said, when I was a young person, I was full of dreams. I had high hopes, but yet now that I'm a middle-aged person, somehow I've lost my passion. I've lost my dreams in life. Now I'm just like a Goliath. Now I'm a bully. Now I don't have passions. I don't have high ideals, and I don't have my dreams anymore. From where did David summon his courage? So I think Samuel's anointing in front of his family. I think the Bible also gave us some reasons, additional reasons why he was courageous. And that was because as a shepherd boy, even before he was anointed, when he was a shepherd boy, he had some successes. He was successful in killing a lion who tried to hurt or harm some of his sheep. He also had success protecting his sheep from a bear. And he believed, and he has faith in a just world. He believes that this world can be just. This world can be fair. David had first conquered the lion, then the bear. Goliath was actually the next one. A lot of people say that Goliath was David's big one, the big enemy that he slaughtered. Actually, one could also say that Goliath was not just David's big one. Goliath was actually his next one. In 1 Samuel 17, David had said, "Your servant has killed both the lion and the bear. This uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them because he has defied the armies of the living God." He sees that God will be on his side and that he can do mighty things through him. David's formula to success will be what? Number one, being dutiful and responsible in his role. First, when he was a shepherd boy, he was dutiful and he was responsible. And then he acquired useful skills through work. How did he learn how to use the slingshot? I suppose when he was a shepherd boy, when he had to tend his sheep and had to protect his sheep, he had to think of ways to ward off the wild animals that might potentially harm his sheep. And he trusted, because God is just, that God would be on his side when he carried out justice. Today, young people, I want to draw my talk to a close. There may no longer be a Goliath around. But Dr. Chang wants to tell you that there are still mighty giants in the world today. There are mighty giants, at least 5 of them. There may be even more. There is a mighty giant called pandemic diseases. In these days of COVID, I don't need to tell you what great challenges we are facing, how public health has been challenged over the years. Look, just in the last generation, what have we come across? We've come across HIV, we come across Ebola, we came across H1N1 and then H2N5, Zika virus, malaria, measles, dengue fever, and also coronavirus. And it's still not behind us. And today with the COVID, with pandemic upon us, some of the young people today may say, well, I was thinking of being a doctor, but I don't want to be a doctor anymore. Why? Well, because it's too dangerous. I don't want to be there. I don't want to be infected. I don't want to go into medicine because it's so dangerous. But young people, I challenge you to think just the very opposite. You might not have considered medicine in your career, as your career. Now I want to challenge you. Why don't you go into the health profession? We need a lot of young people that will go into the health professions. We need our young people, young talents, to join the health sector. People who will work hard, who are courageous, who will find a cure, who will find the solution, who will find the best medication to fight all of these pandemic diseases. There is another giant called illiteracy. We need lots of young people today who want to go into education, because illiteracy means not just uneducated, it means an inability to think clearly. We need lots of teachers. We need lots of young talents to go into teaching. A lot of young people go into teaching because they love the teaching profession, because it has long summer holidays. But you don't want to go into teaching because of that. You want to go into teaching because you want to make a difference. You want to be like Seth Andrew. You want to be like perhaps my Mark. You want to be a difference maker. You know, if you travel to other parts of the world, there are still scenes like this. This is a school. This can be a school. You say, no, schools don't look like this. But this is a school. That's how they manage. There are lots of needy places in the world today. There's a giant also called poverty. Poverty. There are lots of people who are still suffering very, very much. I hope many young people today will go into business. I hope a lot of young people will make a lot of money in the future. But I hope when you do, you don't forget about the poor people in the world. There are also a giant called spiritual emptiness. You know, more and more today, you see young people who are depressed. I don't know why. I don't know why there's so much anxiety, so much adolescent depression. Why is it that in every Canadian classroom, there seems to be at least one who is fighting some form of depression? And we see people who are into drugs and into all kinds of lifestyles. And what they're trying to do is just to numb themselves. Lots of people with mental challenges and so on. We need young people who want to go and help them, go into the helping professions. And we also see a giant that is called self-serving leadership. Leaders should be the ones who should be helping the people, who should lead the people, who should form policies that would bless the people. But yet what we see today in 2017 is there are just so many refugees. The number exceeded 65 million people, the most ever in the world, ever in the history of the world. There have never been so many refugees in the world. I hope many of our young people today will become leaders in our parliaments, become leaders in our community. But I want you to become servant leaders. Don't become self-serving leaders. Don't become corrupt leaders. Don't be like, you know, the mayor of one of the biggest cities in America. The city we just talked about, this mayor who is refusing to step down. Don't be a leader like that, but be a servant leader following after Jesus Christ. Jesus came as a leader, but he came as a servant to serve us until death. That's the kind of leader Jesus was. And so we need to pattern ourselves after them. So in summary, there are the five giants of pandemic diseases, of illiteracy, of poverty, of spiritual emptiness, and also of self-serving leaders. Don't you see these 5 giants? And because of these giants, the world needs what? The world needs you to care for the sick, to educate the next generation, to assist the poor, to mend the broken hearts, and also to equip servant leaders. Some of you will want to become pastors. Some of you will want to become missionaries. Some of you will want to plant churches to help people. Well, do you see a Goliath wreaking havoc in the world today? Do you want to challenge him? Do you want to just let him have his way? Or do you want to bring him down? Do you want to follow David's example? Be dutiful and responsible in your current role. Now you may be a student in grade 7. Now you may be a high school student. Do you want to be dutiful and responsible in your role right now? You want to learn all the useful skills that you can in your current role, because you never know when an opportunity to serve may come. You never know when you will go to the front lines and see the Goliath face to face. And you need to rally behind the cause of social justice, because our world, our God is a just God. Why should you work hard? Your parents may say you work hard to go to university, you make a good living. Tonight, Dr. Chang says to you, you've heard a crying world. The world said, I'm a broken world. I need fixing. Won't you help? Your parents will say, you work hard and have a better life. Now you say, I want to make this a better world. I want to work hard, not just to have a better life for myself, but I want to make this a better world. It's easy for young people when you see a daunting challenge, when you see Goliath face to face. It seems like that you're just pushing a big boulder up a hill alone. It's hard. Can I do it? Well, here's where your parents come in. Here's where your Sunday school teachers and your church leaders come in, because they want to stand by you. First, young people need their parents to set an example. Parents, be an example to your child. If you want child to do something great with their life, to do something impactful for God, you do something impactful for God and great for God. 2, they need teachers and mentors with passion. 3, our young people need like-minded friends. I hope there are young people from your church who think just like you, who want to be like David. It's great that you can band with them, that you can be together and encourage one another. 4, they need parents who love them unconditionally and will support them. Work hard. Work hard to make this world a better place. Be a blessing to the world. So as parents, when we see someone like this on the street, just collecting empty boxes and card boxes to try to etch out a living, don't say to your kids, well, if you're lazy now, one day you will be like her, just picking up boxes from the street. So we say, don't forget the needs of the poor. Point out to them, 告诉他们，孩子，我们这一代没有帮助像他一样有需要的人。长大之后，你要用你的力量来解决我们这一代没有好好的处理好的问题。When we see a beggar on the street, don't just say to the kid, if you're lazy, you'll be like him one day. Let's say you need to help to alleviate joblessness. Maybe one day, with the education you have, you become a leader. Maybe you become a policy formulator. Maybe you'll be the one who will be able to legislate laws and so on. Do something to help the homeless, the jobless, and so on. Sometimes when parents see that, people live in a cramped housing, parents will say, if you don't work hard in the future, that's what is in store for you. You try to scare them. But better yet, you say, in our generation, we haven't really solved this problem. So if you can somehow do something in this area, it will be such a great help to the world. The following is actually something that I encourage parents in Asia to do, because as many parents want to encourage the children to study abroad or maybe to immigrate abroad, what they say is, well, if you work hard, you acquire the necessary skills, and you too can emigrate. You can also go to great cities and get established there. But I want parents to also encourage the kids to give back to the community that nurtured them, the children. Have some sense of responsibility, have some sense of wanting to give back. Now I must close. We started this talk by citing this phrase. But I change it now. Instead of teachers, I change it to parents. The mediocre parent just tells the kids. But the good parent would explain, the superior parent demonstrates, and the great parent inspires. 平庸的家长告诉，合格的家长解析，优秀的家长示范，伟大的家长表扬。Okay, that's my talk. I hope you get something good out of this. Let's have a brief word of prayer. Father, we just want to give you thanks and praise tonight for the young people who are in our midst, for the parents who are also here. Give them wisdom so they know how to motivate their kids. Show them how they can also be an example to their kids. To live a life with passion and purpose. Father, we ask you to be especially with young people today. Show them the way. Show them that you have a plan for them. Show them that as long as they're willing to give their life to you and follow and seek your will, you will direct them to a life that is exciting and rewarding and worthwhile. We give you thanks and praise in Jesus' name. 好的，就把时间交给Pastor Luke， 我就在这里停止那个分享。
好的，谢谢郑博士。Thank you very much for Dr. Chang giving us such a good talk. So as we mentioned, we will have tonight's conference recorded and put up on YouTube in probably in the next couple of days. For those who want to have a copy of the video link, please send us contact. And we will also, you are also actually encouraged to join our church if you feel like to. And so let's see. And we will have another talk at April the 17th. So that one will talk about education, which is aimed for the parents. That one will be taught in Chinese, in Mandarin. And in TCBC Makram, we also have youth services on Zoom at 10 a.m. And this information, you feel free to take them down. Or if you want to have more information regarding this, feel free to contact us. I will put in a contact email and a phone number of Pastor David Wong, our senior pastor of our church. And you feel free to consult him about anything to relate to the conferences or our churches. So thank you all for joining us tonight. And I don't know whether we have some time for Dr. Chance to answer some question if someone will have. Maybe not.
哎呀，现在呢，我就能看到呢，有人留言说呢，能不能翻译一下中文？
Oh, that was yeah. 对，那个是比较早，不好意思，因为我们这个账号没有办法做那个同声的传译哈，所以这个很抱歉。但是我们上传到 YouTube 之后，YouTube 我会开那个 closed caption， 就是到时候你可以开那个字幕，你可以选择你要用英文的也好，或者是那种自动翻译成中文的也可以，但是通常那个翻译好像不太准确，但是总比没有好啊，只是这样子。
是的。
好，那等一下我会在那个不要等一下了，我现在就放了。如果各位想要去拿到我们这一次讲座的这个录音的视频，还有在 YouTube 上面的 link 的话，你可以发 email 到我现在打出来的这个 email 地址哈。那我会在整理之后，我就会发给各位哈。因为我们这一次没有特别的做任何的注册的工作，所以我是不知道有哪位是 参加我们的聚会，因为有很多的新朋友，所以如果你们是觉得很想跟我们联系，不管是跟教会相关的，还是跟这个讲座相关的，或者是想要取得录影的链接，欢迎你发你的要求给我哈，那到时候我会在这边再把这个相应的资料整理好之后，我会再发给各位。好，那最后看我们的主任传道正义传道有没有什么东西要补充，或者是给各位祝福的晚安啊。So let's see if, whether Pastor David Wong have any follow-ups for us.
对，刚才王律传道也提到，就是我们教会也有Youth English Service，这个呢在那个 chat 把这个 information 告诉大家了，是在礼拜天早上的10点钟，是用那个 Zoom，就是大家参与进来就可以，都是有高中生，那个也有大学生，那么这是open 给 everybody。对，那么我们教会的这个 adults service 呢，也是在10点钟，是在那个 poster 上面的，就是今天用的这个 Zoom 的，那个同样的 ID 和 password， 所以说呢，这个需要参加的都欢迎的啊。对，那如果是大家你对叫个什么这个讲座你有什么期待？那也可以在这个 chat 里面来告诉我们，对，对，另外，刚才，就是郑博士他讲的那个 seminar，如果你有什么 any question， 或者是想，有什么问题要问郑博士，我们下面也可以有一些时间。